As I indicated earlier, they spoke to me at every opportunity that when Emilia was pregnant with Magda, she wanted to end it quickly by doing all sorts of things to miscarry. I always wondered why. I could not see any logic in this, and one did not become any wiser even after many years. Often I observed Emilia hysterically laughing out of the blue, perhaps influenced by wine, declaring that she was so happy that someone like me had come along, and hopefully would take her daughter away. I took it as a joke, and told her that they would always be welcome at our home if I married her. She used to respond saying that I should make sure I loved Magda faithfully. However, one of Emilia's behavioral traits was most peculiar, for she was often seen kneeling on the floor, picking up crumbs from the carpet, and promptly putting them in her mouth. Was it due to being influenced by wine? Magda's father hardly spoke, preferring to listen to German military marching bands. But when he did, it was often about his days serving with the Hitler Youth. Emilia, on the other hand, listened to a large repertoire of Hungarian gypsy music. Why particularly so much interest in that kind of music? Maybe due to her involvement in a gypsy love affair, which she spoke of, but which did not have ended ideally. One could not be certain about her supposed involvement with Magda's birth father. Magda had no idea about who her real father was. Alas, it could not be mentioned nor verified due to a variety of reasons. However, Emilia told me almost everything in her completely drunken state, and often begged me not to tell anything to Magda. I found it hard not to think about what she told me in regard to the awful things she did to get rid of her, but Magda, who was very stubborn, had survived. She felt forced to love her daughter, who now, an educated young girl, working in an office. Whenever Magda's parents talked to me about how sad they felt about her involvement with Jehovah's Witnesses, Emilia exclaimed she hoped that one day I would take her away from that cult, while hoping that she would also look after her mama. I used to respond to her with, "Yeah, by offering you more wine, perhaps." She always reacted with smiles. During the weekends and upon our meeting at an earlier time, Magda, who always aimed to remain truthful in everything, lied to her parents, saying that we were going to a dance, swimming, or a restaurant. But when outside, she immediately changed her tone, demanding that we go to Jehovah's Witness meetings at the local Kingdom Hall. She often told me things like, "If you love me, as you say you do, you must demonstrate it by going to these important meetings with me, because the end can happen any day now. It is written in the Bible, and it is the only truth." I was subjected to this advice whenever I met her, and, as she often added, we must think of our priorities first, and so later we can worry about the mundane. Often repeating what her witness brothers advised against any formal education, she attempted to lecture me about what I might consider learning. Obviously, she was in need to control my every move and thoughts as her dreams led her. Again I say the alarm bells kept ringing, but I was deaf and blind to her unique characteristics, for love's sake. We kept attending those meetings. However, I never stopped my education, even though I was forced to keep everything secret. Oh, how much I would have loved to go dancing with her and to other social occasions, concerts and cinemas from time to time. Those times sadly remain as memories of once upon a nightmare, when she repeatedly told her mother that we were going for a walk, always ending up doing something contrary to what I would like. She would go for her Bible studies with her brothers belonging to the local congregation, where I was never invited, and would simply sit in the park or go to a coffee lounge and wait until her arrival several hours later. Only then could we have a little walk and be romantically engaged. Even that was often spoiled with only thoughts being considered important by the witnesses. It was indeed her sole interest when she studied with those brothers, making me wonder why I was not allowed to meet them. Remember, Jehovah's Witnesses call their baptized members as brothers and sisters. Was Ruth perhaps teaching her the ways of witnesses before Magda's Bible study was passed on to a brother? I had no idea. It was a fascinating phenomenon, and I was always kept in the dark as to who the other people teaching her the supposed Bible truths were. It remained hidden. I tried to ignore how she lied to her parents, demanding that we go to the Kingdom Hall. I could not tell her much other than that I was only befriended with the witnesses because I needed friends, and certainly did not consider myself as a baptized member of this belief system. Whatever those brothers and sisters declared would always have a deeper impact, for allegedly they never spoke of things which were untrue. Therefore, whatever they said on behalf of me or behind me could only be the truth, as she often claimed. For love's sake, I could not do much, and that was one of the hardest things I had to endure. I was forced to hide many truths about myself, including my studies, for, after all, any kind of higher education was considered as being a tendency towards materialism, and therefore devil worship. In all honesty, I was enduring something extremely dull and boring just to please her, while hoping that perhaps there was something in their teachings which I might also benefit from, perhaps discovering something new and exciting. But what I realized was that everything read and interpreted remained just the same. They were presented over and over again as being newly discovered and previously unknown truths, utilizing new ways of describing the old, using a variety of words, for German language was rich in idioms and colorful expressions. When something was not fully understood, other great thinkers' ideas and words were repeated by a group of elders working at their headquarters. As could be found in their magazines and books, interestingly, they remained anonymous until many years later. Anybody inclined to conduct a serious study can easily discover much of the information made available within the rich literature housed in worldwide libraries and on the Internet. Some of the wisdom presented was based on common logic, or adapted from the works of other authors, without giving them any credit. I felt that although the authors whose knowledge had been stolen, considering them as worthless outsiders, the witnesses nevertheless regarded their wisdom as apparently being inspired of God. For obvious reasons, one could not say anything to the contrary, for the authors of Jehovah's Witness publications had to be the chosen of God, and therefore inspired to write only the truth. In their yearbooks, one could read all about the sufferings of their brothers and sisters and their hundreds of hours of long pioneering activities all around the world. They were apparently suffering for preaching the truth, as commanded by the Lord Jesus. Personally, I could not say anything other than just play a role, pretending what I was not, for the sake of pleasing her. I was befriended with a number of other witnesses, who often promoted a strict moral code and spoke of honesty. However, after all the things observed, I felt the urge to question their integrity. Were they really so honest while displaying complete hypocrisy in their beliefs and behavior? My simple but important questions still remained unanswered. For example, how did sin enter the equation, and why did a great God invent or allow it to happen? When the good God commanded his important creation to become many on the face of the earth, did he also foresee that they were going to have incestuous relationships, and their offspring would become defective? No matter what I tried to explain, Magda always had to be right. I was fearful of losing her, blindly mesmerized by her charms. Remember, it was my very first serious love affair. I continued to live a life of pretense and hoped for better things. Many years later, I was to discover that her love was only for her own needs, ends, and interests in that belief system the witnesses adhere to. She was completely sucked in, and nothing else mattered for her any longer. Although belonging to a strict Lutheran evangelistic church, her parents were totally against her being involved in any cultist movement. Even her Aunt Mitzi was anti-such activity, speaking to me discreetly. Magda displayed extreme naivety in many other ways, thus making one feel that she needed to be looked after without making it obvious. They were all hoping that I was going to be able to assist her to see things as they were in real-life circumstances, but unfortunately I was introduced to them as a believer in the truth, and this truth had to be the Jehovah's Witness truth. And according to Magda, my knowledge of the Bible was remarkable. If she would only listen to reason, she would be shocked to discover multitudes of discrepancies amongst the Bible writers. It was impossible to explain anything to completely closed-minded people, rejecting any alternative ways of thinking for fear of God's divine punishment of the sinners. I kept trying to explain a few important matters, but was never able to get through. Was I not a newcomer, still learning German, and being from a different background, allegedly unable to express myself properly? No matter what my lingual lack may have been, I was capable of expressing myself even if I needed to use dictionaries. Albert Einstein says, "Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted." That is the truth. I tried to convince her that I was not what she thought I was, but could not succeed. Therefore, I asked her several times point blank, if I was not a witness, would she still love me? Her hesitant answer was that she could, but she needed to get to know me a little better. However, if she was eventually baptized in their faith, she would only prefer to be involved with a baptized brother. There were several of them waiting for the opportunity to ask her hand in marriage when she was baptized and serving the Lord. I hoped I was not hindering her progression in that regard. I could not tell her anything else other than enjoy all those times we spent together, even if this affair came to an abrupt end. I was unsure whether I was doing the right thing by falling in love with her. I was not in a desperate hurry. I was still very young, just like her, needing to learn many more things about life. Although spending much of my time with her, most of which was taken by her religious education, I was unsure whether we were to start discovering about each other's characteristics, needs, and interests more thoroughly other than what we had so far in a most restrictive manner. Whenever I asked her if she loved me as I loved her, the only answer I could get was always a hesitant, "Love can grow." Another of her favorite sayings was, "Respect to one another is very important, and respect must be earned." When I spoke about it to Sister Nurg, she asked me if that rule applied to Magda as well. Besides, she said, "You are so young and just learning about the facts of life. There are many other girls you could fall in love with, and they could love you for what you are, not necessarily how they might try to recreate you to their liking so that they can love you." I did not completely understand her, but much later I discovered how right and wise she was. I was thinking about my other lady friend in London, but we were not close to each other. I knew I could fall in love with her without any fear of being forced into a mold, but I kept going with Magda, despite all those alarm bells. Perhaps her love for me was yet to grow. As time went by, my romantic dreams became a little more intense, yet I was constantly bombarded by her parents on one side and Jehovah's Witnesses on the other that premarital sex was a great sin for good Christians. However, sex is an expression of one's love without worrying about any pregnancy issues when using precautionary measures. Personally, I was not going to push her into something she was not interested in or comfortable with, making her realize that I respected her. I even told her so, and hoped that it made her feel happier and more at ease. Interestingly, Magda always felt the need to ask other witnesses permission and advice in regard to everything she did or thought of doing, particularly issues concerning the subject of romance, falling in love, lifestyles, and health. She was always told what to do and how best to live. In other words, she was becoming more and more dependent on advice given by the witnesses, no longer able to decide anything for herself. In this story, we discover the effects of the Jehovah's Witnesses belief system on their members, controlling their every move and every thought. This is said without being discriminatory. I knew that Magda was an unwanted child like me, but under completely different circumstances. maybe there was a reason for us to be together. Maybe we were going to learn something from it. Even then, I was unsure about the existence of a supreme being in charge of everything within a very big universe. Even then, I pondered about the nature of existence and the constant state of cause and effect, but I could not understand why there needed to be a deity planning my or anybody else's life. Although I could not accept purely accidental beginnings, I equally could not believe in a God who was ever ready to punish and destroy his or her creation either. The Bible is replete with such stories. Nevertheless, our unusual relationship continued to develop, and my parents, particularly my mother, whom I had not seen for such a long time, were overly excited by my telephone conversations, and in a sense I felt they were already congratulating me for my yet-to-be marriage. My studies were of utmost importance, and I was determined to continue with them. In fact, I surprised myself in that I could study and work at the same time, while also falling in love. Magda's mother continually kept repeating her words, whether drunk or sober. Take her away to somewhere distant. I always remember her holding a green or white wine bottle in her hands, as if hugging a newborn baby, whenever she was home. Imagine ringing the bell and a woman opening the door, almost always presenting herself with a bottle of wine in her hands, inviting you in, and you step inside with some trepidation. You would most certainly discover Emilia's love for wine immediately. Everything she cooked had to be saturated in wine also. While cooking, she felt the need to drink and listen to Hungarian gypsy songs. Although the food cooked had a beautiful aroma, we were only offered dry bread, apples, and wine to take with us to Magda's room. Her father was not happy, even perhaps frightened of me sitting at the same table when having dinner. He often deliberately spoke about it to Emilia and Magda. I could always hear them argue, even when standing in front of their door, but pretended as if I heard nothing. I often told Magda that hopefully I was not causing any inconvenience to her father,